Okay, so it looks like everyone who wants to join has joined, and there are a number of people. I welcome you all for this session on what is DevOps and specifically Azure DevOps. I'm going to discuss a little bit about the DevOps as a concept and what DevOps is and what is not DevOps. And then I'm going to also discuss a little bit about the Azure DevOps, but more focus on the actual demonstration of Azure DevOps and how it works and what are the various services in that and those kind of things. Of course, you will get time to ask questions related to both the DevOps in general as well as Azure DevOps. I will spare about at least 10 minutes at the end for any questions that you may have regarding the DevOps. Okay, about myself, I am Subodh Sohoni. I am Microsoft MVP, specializing in the Azure DevOps and Azure DevOps Server, which is the Team Foundation server. I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm an MVP for last 10 years and MCT for last about 15 years, MCSD and lots of other certifications in the Scrum Developer, Scrum Master. So I do provide trainings and consulting to various customers on these subjects. Okay, so I request all of you to mute yourself if you have not already muted, and because there is some noise which is going on, and I would prefer that there is no noise when we start actually discussing the topic. I felt that I've been conducting trainings on DevOps for last so many years, and I felt that there is a lot of misconceptions about the DevOps, and what is DevOps is not really known by even the industry leaders. So I wanted to spread the knowledge, and that's why I do conduct these kind of sessions, even in Microsoft as well as outside Microsoft. Okay, so let's start with what is DevOps and how it has become very essential in today's development world. All of you, I'm sure, must be aware of agile development. It has been there for years and years, maybe about 20 years or so, it has become popular. Agile development is, it should lead to, I'm not saying that it does lead to, but it should lead to early and frequent value to customer. That's one of the goals of agile development. Now, why is it that I'm saying it should, but it may not? Is there is a miscommunication between the creation of the software to the use of the software by the customer. Now, the example here can be that the apples are ready in the orchard. Good, okay. But until they reach the customer, she cannot eat it. So there is a gap between these two, the orchard to the mouth of the customer, there is a gap, and that gap has to be fulfilled by a delivery mechanism. That delivery mechanism takes the apple from the orchard and delivers it to the customer so that she can enjoy that, she can have the fruit. So that's the point between the agile development, which happens very frequently and rapidly, but it does not get delivered to the customer that rapidly. And now we have to learn why is it that it doesn't get delivered, and why is it that what is it that we have to do that. So we need to do the rapid delivery also in addition to the agile development. So agile development is there. Most of the organizations today have got the gist of agile development. I'm not at all saying that you don't need to do anything else, but the rapid delivery is still not there. And why it is not there, we will discuss that in a short while. So if we add the rapid delivery to the agile development, then the early and frequent value will be given to the customer, and that is possible by DevOps. So agile development is a part of DevOps. It's not something outside DevOps, but in addition to the agile development is rapid delivery. So what I say, and I like to make that as the definition of DevOps, is it is extending the agility or the umbrella of agility to the operations so that the delivery becomes frequent and rapid, and that entire umbrella becomes the DevOps umbrella. So that's how I define it. Of course, there is a definition of DevOps which is more formal in nature, which I don't want to read through. I don't want even you to read through it, but just read the words which are I have highlighted in the red color. So it is a development and delivery process. It's not only development and delivery process. It has a very important aspect of communication and collaboration. So it has to be a communication between the developers and the operations people, as well as work collaboratively so that it becomes possible to deliver the software to the customers rapidly. And it also has an alignment with the business objectives. So it's not that we are delinking business objectives. It is one of the important factors for agile development, so that as rapidly the business changes, that much rapidly we should be able to give the changed software to the business, who in fact the business are the whole objective of developing the software. To make that business successful is the whole purpose of creating the software. So it may be a business of shipping, or it may be banking, or it may be some courier business, some business. To make it successful, we are developing the software, and a business changes, that change has to be incorporated, and the software has to be supporting that change, and that is the whole concept behind DevOps. The DevOps is a lot about automation also, although it is not everything about automation. But it has some other factors like culture, which we are going to see what it means. And finally, the goal is to rapidly, frequently, and reliably, not without the quality, but the rapid, frequent delivery with reliability is what is going to make the business successful. So that's a formal definition of DevOps, which is, you can find it on Wiki or somewhere, Wikipedia or somewhere. I don't want you to also go and read it, because you have to understand what is DevOps rather than mugging up what is the definition of DevOps. The first pillar of the DevOps is the mindset. Mindset of the developers is made up due to the agile. They have been agile for years now. So implement every change which is demanded by the customer has become their mindset. That, okay, customer requires a change, which is valid because of the business change. Okay, we'll do that and develop that. Make that rapidly, as fast as possible. We'll change the software and develop the new software which satisfies the customer's new business demands, is what has become the mindset of the developers. But it is not yet the same thing about the operations people. The operations people, now not many developers know about what the operations people do, but operations people make it possible to deliver the software and then monitor the performance and availability of that software continuously for the organization. They have a mindset, and that's not something which is odd. They have a mindset because of a mandate which is given by the management, that some aspect of the performance and availability of the software is the responsibility of the operations people. Now that's what is a mandate given by the management. So they have a mindset that if something is not broken, we will not change it. They do not change the status quo. If it is working, why change it? That's their mindset. Because the change has a potential to break. If there is a change in the software, if there is a change in the configuration, there is a potential to break the software. And we don't, the operations people, we don't want that to happen because it's something which we are responsible for. And the testers community again have a totally different mindset. Like they think that responsibility of the quality is only mine. The developers and the operations people don't understand about the quality, and it's only me that I'm going to be responsible for the quality, which is not true. Of course, it's everybody's responsibility. Quality is not only the testing or the quality assurance people's responsibility, but everybody's responsibility. And they don't give importance to delivery over quality. So it's okay, but at least they should also understand the problems and issues which the developers and operations people face. So what is my interpretation of what DevOps means? Is DevOps is everything which is in the agile. So whatever I'm showing in the red border has been there as part of the agile for years, and it has been very popular. So there are frameworks like Scrum and Extreme Programming and Crystal and all, which have supported this agile development for quite some time. There have been the version controls which are like Git and SVN and Team Foundation Server, which have been supporting, and the build softwares, and all these things are present, whatever is in the red. Now let's talk about what is outside. Once the software is built and we would prefer to deploy it to the server, then the provisioning of the prerequisites starts. That provisioning is like installing the prerequisite hardware and software, maybe right from the operating system, and then installing the prerequisite software like SQL Server or Exchange or something like that, so that now we can deploy the actual components of the software which we have built. So provisioning is the first part that the operations people do. Then the next is the deployment of the actual software. That deployment may be on multiple environments, like you may have a dev environment and a test environment and maybe a staging or UAT environment, and then finally the production environment. So we have that entire deployment process which is needed. And after that deployment is done, the operations people keep on monitoring the health of the application, like how much is the availability. We have a SLA of 99.9% availability with the customer. We have to monitor how much is the real availability so that it can be proven to the customer that we have maintained that SLA. We have to also monitor the performance of the application. So the health monitoring is one aspect that the operations people do continuously after deployment. And secondly, they also make it possible to get the feedback from the customer and plow that back as the raw requirements into the requirements stack. So the testing and feedback is also, now here there is a difference between the testing which is done as a unit testing and the testing which is done after the deployment of the application to, say, a testing environment. So here we are assuming that the testing which happens on the testing server or testing environment is the responsibility outside the team of the Scrum team, and giving the feedback also is the outside responsibility. So these are the things which the operations people do regularly, but they were not doing it frequently, or they were not doing it rapidly, because that was not the mandate which was given to them by the management. What I say is that the DevOps encapsulates, or DevOps brings under the entire this umbrella of agility all these things, including the provisioning, deployment, health monitoring, feedback, testing. All these aspects of the delivery of the software are also brought under the umbrella of the Agile, and that becomes DevOps. Now, this concept is easy to understand, easy to learn, not very difficult to understand the concept, but very difficult to actually implement it. Okay, because first of all, the mindsets of each of those, as I mentioned earlier, are set, and we have to first of all break those mindsets and make a team which has a representation of the development, operations, testers, so that everybody has got a common goal, a common mindset that we have to give the customer early and frequent delivery, rapid delivery, but which is reliable also, which has the highest of the quality possible in that period of time. So that mindset has to be for the developers as well as operations people as well as testers. It is also not possible to provide early and frequent delivery without automation. Automation of the version control, automation of the build and release management or the deployment, automation of monitoring the software, automation of testing, all these things are needed to be automated, and that is not possible without the tools. There are a number of tools which have come into being, and at the end of this today's session, I'm going to show you a few of those which I feel are very competitive in, and you should know about those besides the Azure DevOps, which we are going to discuss. So these are the three different pillars of the DevOps: the mindset change, automation, and the tools. All are equally important. You should not give importance to only one of them, but give equal importance to all three of those. What is not DevOps, and not only sometimes DevOps is, and if you are say you are told that we are advertising for a DevOps engineer and would you like to apply for that? If an organization asks you that will you become a DevOps engineer or are you a DevOps engineer, they haven't understood the concept of DevOps. There is no job description or a designation called DevOps engineer in any organization. And if there is any, it is wrong. There should not be any. DevOps is a concept which is to be embraced by the entire team. The team which is consisting of the representation of development, operations, and testing. All of them as a team should have a common goal of early, frequent delivery with reliability, and that's why I say that there is no such role as a DevOps engineer. So what is that prompts the organizations to make it a DevOps engineer as a job description? People feel that only the operations part, which is part of the DevOps, is the engineer is going to do, and that's why they say that that is the DevOps engineer, which is wrong. It should not be there. The DevOps engineer is a totally wrong concept. DevOps is also not an invasion of developers over the operations. The DevOps is a combination of development, operations, and testing. There is no one role which is primary role in DevOps. There is nothing which says that the developers will be the superior species or something like that. In the DevOps team, everybody is equal. Everybody has got an equal say as well as the decision-making power. DevOps is not only automation and not only culture, not only tools. So don't pay attention to only DevOps or only automation or only culture. Yeah, all these three things are equally important. That should be remembered. Which roles do combine to form a DevOps team? You think of any role within the entire team and it is there. So it is business, architecture, development, testers, database also, system administration, build and release engineering, and to a very large extent, even the management has a role to play in the creation of the DevOps team and having a success as a DevOps. So everybody is a part of the DevOps team. What are the goals to achieve? I'm not going to read all of these, but the first one is the foremost and the most important goal that DevOps team should try to achieve. Improve deployment frequency. Do you know how many deployments that AWS does? In AWS, they have the entire DevOps implementation in such a way that they do 300 deliveries per day. 300. Now, that's something which is not every organization can do and may not also require to do, but having a better frequency than maybe a few weeks or a few months is certainly something which every organization should keep as a goal and try to achieve that. And this leads to a lot of benefits to the organization. How do we achieve that? What are the practices that lead to the early and frequent delivery with high quality, of course? The first and foremost is that it is self-service configuration. There is nothing where we have to go outside the team and request that, okay, we want certain service from the outsider. So if it is a build definition to be created, it should be within the team. If it is, testing to be done, it should be within the team. So the team should have self-service configuration portal through which even no newbie into testing should be able to create the tests, should be able to execute the tests, or should be able to create the build and release definitions. It should be possible to do the provisioning automated. I discussed about the provisioning, like prerequisites for the software deployment. If possible, as far as possible, it should be automated instead of doing the provisioning manually, which is what usually is done. We should have scripts which will do the automated provisioning of the prerequisite. Automated release management through which the releases are done very frequently. And most importantly, 3 aspects of the continuous delivery. I say continuous delivery equal to continuous integration plus continuous deployment plus continuous testing. As soon as a check-in or a push into the version control is done, it should be built to ensure that the software, whatever you have checked in right now, is buildable with the latest of all the other files. It should be immediately deployed to the development or the testing environment as an automated process, and then as far as possible, the automated tests should run on those. So those 3 are the most important practices for developing the software rapidly. Some of the pitfalls which you should avoid. Now, I'm not again going to read through entire thing because there are a number of them. But the most important is that do not make an operations team common to all development teams and create a separate team called the DevOps team. That's absolutely wrong. It should not be done. This presentation I have already uploaded to my GitHub repository, and at the end of this session, I will give you a link to that so that there are a number of resources on that, like some presentations are there, hands-on lab manuals are there, and some articles are there. You can freely download those and view those in your spare time whenever you want to learn anything related to DevOps. Okay, now having discussed about the DevOps in general, let's now focus on the Azure DevOps tools. Azure DevOps is a software as a service provided by Microsoft in Azure so that all the DevOps tools very tightly integrated. By design, integration is achieved. Those tightly integrated tools are made available as service rather than you executing and configuring the various tools. it's the responsibility of Azure that these tools are made available to you as service, and you just make use of those as a service without actually owning those, downloading those, installing those, configuring those. Nothing is required to be done. You just make use of those services. So what are those, which are those services? There are a number of services, and you will see that Microsoft has created such a huge infrastructure for this that many of the tools, even in isolation, will become very important to us. The first one, now this is not in the list of order in which like importance is there or anything like that. It is something where I find, okay, these are the things which usually we will go through in the cycle of development. So there are boards for agile planning and monitoring. This service is used for creating the sprint plan, for monitoring the burn down, and those are the tools which are part of the service called boards. Next is the repo, which is where the version control, both the centralized one, which is called Team Foundation version control, and more importantly and more popularly, the decentralized or distributed version control, which is based on Git. Both of them are available as part of the Azure DevOps. There are pipelines, those process the builds and tests and deployments. So these are the pipelines which will help us to execute certain workflows in which various tasks will be executed to do the build or to execute a test or to deploy the software on the predefined environments. It also supports, the pipelines also support the automated platform provisioning, like installation of or creation of the virtual machines or creation of the virtual services in Azure or on any other cloud. It also supports code promotion and synchronization across multiple environments. As I mentioned, you may have a process in which you have a dev environment where the automated deployment takes place as soon as the build is created, and then you may have the test environment where time to time you may want to do the automated deployment, but you don't want every build to be deployed on the test environment. And then you may have further any other environments that the organization desires. It also does the dependency analysis and impact analysis so that the testers don't have to execute all the tests that are necessary. All the tests which are in the plan, they may just check which are the impacted tests and run those, which saves a lot of time of the testers. And finally, although it is not directly part of the Azure DevOps, it is a part of Azure, and that is monitoring the health by using application insights. It's a very tightly integrated service of Azure. With Azure DevOps, this becomes much more important. So these are the various services which are offered by Azure DevOps to us, and we are going to see a small demonstration of all of these one by one. What are the various technologies which are supported? Now you can see almost anything under the sun as far as the development technologies are concerned are supported here. Let it be languages and frameworks like .NET, .NET Core, Java, C++, and whatever, everything. And in those technologies, you may be developing web apps or desktop apps or mobile applications or services. Anything is covered. It supports the build and test and deployment of the scripted applications like JavaScript or Node, React, or Angular and Python. It supports the creation of the containers and deployment of those, as well as control of those directly through the build or the release definitions. So you can create Docker containers or Windows containers. You can also use the Azure functions for microservices, and direct deployment to Azure services, Azure functions is possible. If you are into mobile application development, it supports the build and testing and deployment of the Xamarin-based applications or Android and iOS native applications or React native applications, all kinds of tools. It very tightly integrates with Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code and MS Office. But in addition to that, it also integrates with another of Microsoft services, which is GitHub, App Center. If you are not aware of that, you will find there is a presentation on the GitHub where I have created the resources, which I'm going to give you the link at the end of the session. It also integrates with other tools which are in a way competitors of Azure DevOps, but still it allows you to use those through the Azure DevOps like Jenkins, Maven, and Artifactory, Bitbucket, and many, many, many more. I mean, I'm just giving some list of some major tools, but there are so many other tools with which Azure DevOps can integrate. It can do the builds and testing and deployment on Windows, of course, as well as on Linux, as well as on macOS. It can have agents on any operating system like these three. Of course, the agents on iOS or Android are still not there, but I foresee that in the future, Microsoft must be planning to integrate those also. Okay, so I'm going to now shift the gear and go towards the demonstration. And I'm going to show you that, okay, I have created a team project in Azure DevOps. So this is the Azure DevOps portal, and on which I have a subscription with my name, subodhsoni.visualstudio.com. And I have created a team project called DevOps Demo 1. That project is using Agile methodology, Agile framework, and it also uses Git as the version control. So this is something which I have created so that I don't waste your time in just creating a team project on the fly. But it just takes usually about 2 minutes to create a team project like this one. I have added certain team members in this. The team members are into a team. I'm sorry, I clicked on the wrong. So there are 4 team members, and if I want to view them, if I click on the team's name, so this is the team which has got automatically created when I created the team project, and there are 3 team members besides me. Now you may find, if you are from organizations like Accenture or Capgemini, you'll find that some names may be appearing there which you know. These are my old classmates from my IIT days, and I still keep in touch with them. And I've just used their names and to create a team. Okay, so this is the team which I have. It's a team of 4 people, and I'm going to use that in doing the planning work. I have certain iterations created in this team project, which are iteration 1, 2, and 3. But I set the dates only for iteration 1, which started actually yesterday and going on until 28th of this month. So it's a 2-week sprint which I am planning. So this is the configuration of iteration 1, and of course I can set the dates for the next iteration, like iteration 2. And if I go to that, you'll see that okay, I can set it in, say, since it was 28th of February, which is the last date of this month, the next day available date will be chosen for starting the next sprint, and the next available, okay, I'm sorry, so this is 15th of March is the end date of this iteration. So like that, we can set the start date and end date of the iterations. One more thing out of all these which I want to show is the notifications. And I can set the notifications so that some actions which, if they happen, I may want to get an email, or I want to send email to the specific person. Like I want that if a new requirement has got created and it has got assigned to a specific person. I want that an email should go to that team member. So I can create a new subscription, and it is based on a work item is created, and if it is created, to whom it is assigned to, an email will be sent which will say that, okay, you have been assigned a new work item, and okay, go take care of it, whatever you have to. So this is the way that very easily the email subscription or email notification can be set. These settings, project level settings, there are lots of those. I'm not going to go through all of those because I mean, we have to finish the entire cycle in a half an hour's time or 45 minutes time. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go to the boards, and this is the service for managing the requirements, managing the efforts, managing the quality, like the test cases and the bugs and all those things. So I'm going to go to the boards service, and in that, the backlogs. It starts with the product backlog. There is nothing in the product backlog right now. Okay. So I'm sorry, just skipped back to my mouse is faulty, that's why. So you can see here, there is nothing in the product backlog. It's empty. So we can get started with the product backlog. We can create a new work item from here based on the process which we have chosen, like the agile process we have chosen. It will pick up the type of the work item to create. So it will create a user story, and you can see here when I clicked on the new work item, it is saying that, okay, now you can enter a new user story, which is the title of the user story, and you can add it to the top of the product backlog. So this is one way of adding new work items, but this is not a very efficient way to do the bulk addition of the work items into the team project. This is one way, and if you don't have any other tool, yes, this is the only way that you can add the new work items into the product backlog. But I'm going to show you a much efficient way to add that, and I'm going to open MS Excel. So let me go to my Excel, and I have a workbook created which is user stories and task for demo. So this is going to create certain user stories for a case, and due to the paucity of time, I'll not be able to discuss that case with you, but these are the various user stories which I have created, but I haven't yet added those to the team project. These are the ones which I have just created in Excel at this moment, but I want them to be added to the team project. Now you'll see here that when we have MS Excel and the MS Office, particularly MS Excel and the Visual Studio installed on the same machine, same computer, there is a new menu item which appears, which is called the team menu. This allows us to connect to the team foundation server or to the Azure DevOps, and then select the team project, and then we can interact with the team project directly from MS Excel. So here I have all these created, and I have left the ID field blank. The ID column is blank because I do want that the ID should be given by the Azure DevOps, and I want that it should get populated when that ID is created. So after creating these work item as user stories, I'm going to publish those. So there is a button for publish, which will send all this set of work items as the user stories into the team project, and it will assign the ID which will reflect over here. So I'm going to click on this publish button. Now when I click on the publish button, it just went and got it published into this team project, and ID was given to them, and those IDs are populating over here. So let me go back to our team project and refresh this. Here it was saying that there is nothing in the product backlog, but let me refresh the page of the product backlog and you'll see that the same user stories which were in MS Excel are now appearing over here. Now this is the product backlog. Now of course in a real product it can be hundreds of user stories in the product backlog. I just created a case. So for this case, these are the 7 user stories in the product backlog. Now, as a product owner, I can change the order based on how much important it is. So I'm going to change this to higher. So let's say I feel that this is the one which should be created up first. So I can change the order of that. I can make it as the top. So by drag and drop, I can change the order of the product backlog through the importance or product or the priority which the customer may have given or the dependency check which I may have done. These are the things which will guide me to create the ordered list, which is the product backlog. Now in this product backlog, not everything can be completed on the same time. So I want to give each of the user story certain story points. Right now, there are no story points given to this. So let me go back to my Excel worksheet and add a column of the story points which will appear maybe here. So I'm going to choose columns and going to select the story points, which is the field in the work item, and I'm going to add that, and let's say I want it here after the work item type. So click OK. So here I have story points column appearing here. Now I can give the story points, and I'm going to give some random story points to this. So I'm going to say 8 and 5 and 13, 8, 3, 5, 2. Some story points I have given. So this actually should be done as a part of the sprint planning in which the team will decide this. I'm just showing how the tool works. So after doing this, let me republish this. So once I publish it, and if I go back to the Azure DevOps and refresh this page, you will see that the story points are now appearing over here. Okay, so now that I have the story points and I want to now create the sprint backlog, I'm going to go to the sprints here. And you will see that we don't have anything in the iteration 1. But I need to first set the capacity of this sprint. The capacity is set by each person in the team, what activity that the person does, how much time every day per day that person works in this team, and the team days off as well as each person's day off, if there are any, have to be set. Based on these values which I have set, of course this is settable, so I can change this if I want. I can make it 6 and save it, and you'll see that the number of hours totally are calculated based on how many hours that the person works, each person works, how many days of the working days are there in the so it has got a 9 working days in this sprint, and totally 216 hours are available to the entire team, as well as if I scroll down for each person also, it will show me how many hours are there. Okay, now that I have those as the capacity, I know that I have a capacity of how much? 216 hours. I can go back to the backlog and I can add Okay, so in this sprint, which is the sprint one or iteration one, there is nothing which is added. But if I go to the backlogs, which is the product backlog, these are the ones. Now I'm going to set that the velocity of this team is 16. So I can drag and drop these two user stories into the iteration one. So this is the current iteration in which I'm going to drag and drop these two user stories. Okay, so you can see here, as soon as I dragged and dropped the first one, it has changed the iteration path of that to iteration one. Similarly, I'll do the drag and drop of iteration of the second user story also in the iteration one. So now you can see there are two stories, user stories in the iteration one. And now I'm going to go to the Excel worksheet again, and I'm going to add for one of the user stories certain tasks. Those tasks which are going to implement this user story. So this is the user story. Let me go back and check which one is there. A consultant, as a consultant, I send my profile for approval, or as a HR person, I create new profiles for consultants. So let us say I take that. As a HR person, I create new profiles for consultants who join our organization. I'm going to add a child into this, and those children will be the tasks. So I'm going to create a new level, which is the children level. So you can see here now there is a title one which used to be there. It is still there. It is going to have all the user stories, and there is a title two, and this is where we are going to have all the tasks. I've already created a list of tasks like create or change architecture or UI, logic, code, schema, and all those things. These are the tasks which I want to add, and these are the number of hours which we are going to spend on each of those. So I'm going to add another column here. So I'm going to add a column of remaining work here, which is going to be after the title, and click OK. So here the remaining work column has appeared. I'm going to add various, I'm going to add rows here just so that we can add those many tasks here. So here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, I'm going to add those tasks from here. I'm just going to copy this and paste it over here. Okay, we go back and copy and paste. So here we have the tasks created for each of those, and I can change the title of those to reflect the number 10165. Now, I'm not going to do it for each and every one. You can take it for granted that, yes, I can change it for the. So I have here now these columns, one for the children tasks and another for remaining work in those tasks. And let me go back and publish those. Okay, so it needs the work item type task, and I'm going to set it for each of those, and here we have published those tasks. Now see magic appearing here. So if I go back here and let me go to the sprints, and here you can see that there are these. So if I go here, you can see that the related work has automatically got added over here. And now I'm going to also set the work details. Okay, open this. And I make it a part of the iteration one. Save and close this. Okay, let's say that if I open this remaining work to iteration one, something has gone wrong because of which it is not showing me the yeah. Now I can see here it just needed a refresh. Here you can see that as soon as I added the task into the iteration one, that task's hours are consumed from here. So that 216 now, out of that 2 hours are consumed. I can open that for many other. So I can go to the second task and make this also iteration one. And let's refresh this. And you can see here that. So in this way, it allows us to go until we have consumed the entire capacity of our sprint. Now, I'm not going to again show you the repetitive tasks, what I have to do. Now we are going to move on from here immediately to the version control. So there is a task which is assigned to me, let's say, for creating some code. Now I have created certain application under the repos, and in the files you will see that I've created one solution, added that solution which has got certain projects. So if I go, you can see that there is a CS proj. For web application also there is a CS proj. So these are the projects which I have added, and it's a complete solution for our application. Now this I have added, and I can go and clone that repository. So this is the repository called DevOps Demo 1. This is the Git repository which has got created, and it has a master branch in that. So I can clone that, and when I clone that, I will be able to see that this is the solution which is there in that repository, and I can open that solution from here. Once I open that, which is of course available in the Solution Explorer, I can click on this to change that to the solution view or to the folder view. So this is the solution view, and in that you can see there is a web app and all those things. So what I'm going to do is now this I'm going to branch out, and I want to do some experimentation into the web app. So I'm going to create a branch of the master. So to do that, I go to the Team Explorer, go to the branches, and I'll be able to see that there is a master branch. I want to create a new branch to do some experiments. So I'm going to create a new local branch from the master, and the new branch name I'm going to give is experimental. So this is the branch which I'm going to create, and I'm going to check out that branch so that the changes which I make will not go into the master, but they will go into the experimental branch. So I'm going to create this branch. Now this has got created locally because this is Git. For most of the time, I will be working with the local repository. It's only when I want to share the code that I will push it and it will go to the repository on the server side or repository on the Azure DevOps. So here you can see there is a master branch, but there is no experimental branch yet appearing over here. Why? Because we haven't yet pushed the code. It is just created on the local repository. So if I go back now, and in this experimental branch in the solution, say in a web application, I go to the about.aspx and I make a small change over here. So let's say I put my organization name here. I put that, save it. So this is a change which I have done, some experimental change which I have done. I can go back to the changes and you will see that this has happened and the branch is experimental one. So these are the changes which have happened. Let me give a comment as experimental changes. And this time I'm going to commit as and push those. Commit all and push. So those changes will go to the shared repository. So here you can see these are the outgoing changes and it is pushing those to the shared repository on the Azure DevOps. Now if I go back to Azure DevOps and try to find the branches, from the list, you will see that the experimental branch also has come over here. Now, this is the experimental branch, which I want that somebody should do a review of the experimental branch, and then only it should be merged into the master branch. Master is the one where we will be doing the builds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a pull request here. Pull request is to request somebody to do a review. So I'm going to create a new pull request. And the source branch is going to be the experimental branch. So this is the one which will which will be reviewed. The experimental changes will be reviewed, and I will assign this to various team members. So I can assign it to myself because I do want to. I don't want to change the people, the logon. So I'm going to create a new pull request, and I'm the reviewer also. Usually it should not be so. Ideally, the reviewer should be somebody different than who is requesting the review. But for this demonstration sake, I'm going to do the review. So here I can see that, okay, these are the files which I've got to change, and this is the change which has happened earlier. It was in the earlier version, it was just about, and now there is a name of this company over here. And if I feel that, yes, this is good, I can approve that. And once it is approved, now if there were multiple reviewers, the list of all of them will get shown. Once all of them approve, then the last reviewer can complete this pull request, and at that time it will merge that change into the master branch, and it will delete the experimental branch after merging. So I'm going to complete this merge, and it will delete that source branch. So if I go to the branches now, it will show only master, because the experimental branch, which was created temporarily for the purpose of review, after the review was approved and the merge happened between experimental to master, that has deleted the experimental branch. So there is less clutter on the shared repository, although in the Visual Studio, I will be able to see the branch experimental, because that's in the local repository. It is still there in the local repository, but in the remote or the shared repository, the experimental branch has got deleted. Okay, now I'm going to change this to the master, and you can see here the master does not have this change yet. So I can go back and get all the changes. So I'll go to the synchronization button and pull the changes from there. And you can see that immediately it got changed to the latest version, which is on the server. So now that we have this created, let me go and create a build for this application. To create a build, I have to create a pipeline. And that pipeline can be a build pipeline or a release pipeline. So I'm going to first create a new build pipeline. And this pipeline is going to get the source code from Azure repo, which is the Git repository. I'm going to continue this. And I'm going to select the .NET Desktop as the template for this build. Click apply, so that it will create a pipeline for me, which will consist of NuGet restore, then build a solution, and if we had any tests, it would have executed the tests and published the symbols for doing the debugging in the Visual Studio, and then finally it will copy the output into a folder called artifact staging directory, which is a variable. Actual value we need not know, and we will not also come to know, and then publish that directory as the drop artifact. Now, what is an artifact? Artifact is a location which is used for sharing the output of the build with the release management. Because build and release both are going to work asynchronously. They are not going to be on at the same time. So whenever the build has completed, at that time, maybe the release management is doing something different. It is deploying something. So it will not be able to pick up that output from the as soon as the build is over. So we are going to temporarily store it somewhere, and that somewhere is called the artifact. So we're going to create an artifact in the build, call it as the drop, and it is going to then get picked up by the release management. So I'm going to save and queue this. Now, when we do that, it will tell us that the agent which is going to be used is in a pool called hosted agent. Now, basically, agent is the machine on which and the software which does the build, and it also can do the deployment, it also can do the testing. So all sorts of things the agent does, and they are into a pool like the object pool. There is an agent pool, and that is going to be the hosted. Now, what is hosted? Hosted is that Azure DevOps gives us the ready-made agents, which are the virtual machines somewhere in Azure, which Microsoft makes us available for doing the builds, for doing the releases, for doing the testing. Those agents are made available. We don't get a full control over those virtual machines. We don't get to see their file system. The output of that we will get back in the form of the artifact, and we will get the logs of what exactly happened. So if a build fails, we will come to know what exactly happened at that time. So we are going to use the hosted agent, although it is also possible to use the on-premises agent. So there are some on-premises agents also which I have installed, but I'm not going to use any of those. I'm going to use the hosted agent provided by Azure DevOps, free of cost, for 1,800 minutes per subscription per month. So I can use that for a long time. And I'll save and queue this. So the build pipeline has got queued, and I can view the output of that, sort of a console, which will appear over here, which will tell me exactly what is going on on the agent. So on the agent now, it downloaded the tasks which it has to execute. Then it's going to do the checkout of the code which we need to work with. it will restore the NuGet packages as was configured in the project. So this is how, step by step, those steps which we had from the build definition or the pipeline are going to get executed, and the output of that will be available to us to view in the console. So this is doing the actual compilation right now of all the projects which are there in the solution, and that will be then the output of that will be created. There is nothing to test. There are no symbols actually which we want to publish, but those tasks we have not disabled, so that's why those got executed. There was actually nothing which we had to do. Now, if I look at the artifact here which has got created, the drop artifact has got created, and here we can see that all those projects and their output in the form of DLLs and PDBs are created over here. So, okay, so now we have the output for the entire solution. I'm going to show you how to create a build for a single project. Instead of the complete solution, let's create another pipeline, and that pipeline is going to be for only the ASP.NET project. The code repository, of course, remains same, and I'm going to select the ASP.NET template, and here I am going to select to build. Now it is going to do the build on the hosted agent. It's going to pick up the code and the packages for the NuGet from the SLN. But I'm going to, I may rename this artifact to WebDrop, although it is not necessary. Just for the convenience sake, sometimes I do it. And then I go to the build solution. I do want to build only a project, not the complete solution. So I'm going to delink the solution name. So I unlinked it, and then I'm going to go to the web application, expand the project folder, and go to the name of the csproj file, which is ssgsems webapp.csproj. And I need to add one more argument to the MS build argument, and that argument is output path. This argument is not required when we are building the complete solution. It's only when we are building the single project that we have to add this argument. So I've just set it that output path is artifact staging directory. And I'm going to disable the task of testing as well as symbols. So it will publish the artifact with the name WebDrop. And I'm going to set the trigger here to continuous integration, which means every time some code is pushed into this project, it will automatically build this project. So this is the trigger which I have set. I go back and save and queue this. So although it can be also triggered by the check-in, it can also be triggered manually. So I'm going to trigger it manually. So a new build has got created, and I'm going to show you the output of that the way I did it earlier for the complete solution build. So same way, it's going to check out the code. So it will get the code on the agent and then do the compilation build, restoring the NuGet packages. Building the ASP.NET project. and it's publishing the artifact. Okay, now the artifact is ready, and we can go and view the web drop artifact. And if I expand this, you'll see that it has created those DLLs as well as a zip file, which is a web deploy package. That web deploy package can be deployed to either Azure App Service or to IIS server as per our need. So what I'm going to show you now next is how do I deploy this to Azure App Service. So I'm going to close this, and I'm just going to show you that I've already created one placeholder app service called Optimistic short form OPT DevOps demo. And if I click on this, it will show that it's just a placeholder. There's nothing which actually is getting executed in this. Okay, let me go back to the DevOps, Azure DevOps, and create a new release pipeline. Like we created the build pipeline, I'm going to create a release pipeline. And here in this pipeline, I'm going to say that, okay, I'm going to do the Azure App Service deployment. So this is the template which I'm going to select. App Service is already there. And this stage, I'm going to call it as the dev environment. And then let me select which artifact will be deployed. So the build artifact, which is created by our web applications build, is what I will pick up. So I need to select the proper build. So this is the build which has got created, and the default version which will be deployed is the latest version. And let me add this artifact. So this is the latest artifact which has got created by this build is going to get deployed now. And now I'm going to set the process through which this deployment will be made. Let me select the Azure subscription which is going to be used, and I'm going to use my Azure subscription which I need to authorize, so that there is a link between Azure DevOps and the Azure subscription which will be authorized, and the process of the Azure DevOps can access my Azure resources. Okay, so this has got authorized, and now I can see that these are the various app services which exist in my account on Azure. So I can scroll down and select the app service which I have created as a placeholder for this. And in this now we have the app service deployment. This is the task which will be actually doing the app service deployment from the zip file which has got created. So I can select the exact zip file. If we had multiple zip files, I can select the exact zip file from the artifact which has got created. And this artifact, which is the web drop artifact, has this zip file. So let me select that. This is the actual exact zip file. Okay, so I have selected that. And this will be now deployed to the app service. So I'm going to click on the save button here and click the release button to create a release. So as soon as the release has got created, similar to the build artifact, now like I created the dev environment, here we can also create multiple environments either in parallel or in the series order. We can also set certain conditions, like when should it get deployed to the next environment and those things. Now here it's deploying the artifact, the zip file, to the Azure App Service. Okay, so updated app service application settings and kudu settings, and now it's connecting to that and creating the necessary directories on the app service. It has successfully updated the app service configuration. It has created the and application insights also. Now let me go back to the app service in Azure, and the same link which I had clicked earlier here for viewing, where we had got the placeholder. I'm going to refresh that. Yeah, you can see here immediately the application has started. So here we have completed the deployment, and here if we want, we can go back to the pipeline and pipeline definition. And if you want, you can, as I said, you can set multiple environments here. We can add the environments, like I'm going to create a new stage for the parallel stage for application app service deployment. Again, call it as the test environment and set the various triggers for that. Now here you can see that we have continuous deployment trigger, and here also we have, after the release is created, immediately the deployment will start. So we have completed the CI/CD pipeline. As soon as a check-in happens or the push happens into the version control, it's going to build that. As soon as the build is over, it's going to create the deployment so that complete change to the application is automated. Okay, so this was about the CI/CD pipeline. Let me go back to the presentation. There are a few slides remaining in that, and then we can discuss your queries. So there, in addition to these services, Azure DevOps also provides the dashboard for showing what are the state of various artifacts and the work items and all those. There are a number of widgets which are available. It has a wiki, built-in wiki, which allows the discussion between the team and the team members. So that's also available. There is a service which packages the artifacts. The supported technologies are NuGet, NPM, Maven, Python. Lots of technologies are supported. It in fact creates its own feed, so that you don't have to go to the nuget.org or npm server or something like that. Within the Azure DevOps itself, it has the feed. It has a test hub for doing the test planning services, like to create the test plan for each of the sprint, create the test suites and test cases, run those tests. And one of the biggest productivity enhancers is rich bug creation. So immediately, as soon as the bug is detected in the test, you can file that bug within a minute's time. The rich bug containing the data like steps to reproduce, screen snapshots, screen video if necessary, all is ready, and that saves a lot of time. I have seen that using this test hub can save about 30% of the productivity of the testers. Why do organizations prefer the Azure DevOps? Of course, it's one of the premier DevOps services suite. It's based in cloud. It's software as a service, so there is no hassle of installation, configuration, taking the backups and maintenance. Everything is delegated to Azure. So we don't have to do that, although if you want, you can do all those things as the Azure DevOps Server, which was formerly known as Microsoft TFS. It's integrated by design, so that all these services, as you saw, are so well integrated, and that gives a lot of advantage. High availability is there, and performance is managed by Azure. All the services which are needed by any DevOps team are there in the Azure DevOps. Last slide, comparable products or services. I have done a lot of detailed analysis, and I have zeroed down on 3 different softwares and services which are at least comparable with Azure DevOps. I still don't say that they are equivalent to Azure DevOps. Like there is a Jenkins, which is open source software. It doesn't have cloud-based SaaS model, in my opinion, and doesn't have integrated version control also. Other than that, it's quite good. Then there is a company called Atlassian, and they have an Atlassian suite like Jira, Bitbucket, Bamboo. These are various softwares, quite good. I have evaluated them for many organizations, and I have come to respect them quite well. Costs are comparable with Azure DevOps, a little bit costlier compared to Azure DevOps, I would say. HPALM, although it's quite frequently I see it's used, it's strongly oriented towards testing and not towards the complete ALM suite. And it doesn't have many of the services like version control, build, and all those things. Okay, so these are my recommendations that you can compare, although I'm sure that after comparing, you will come back to the Azure DevOps. These are the various resources. I have uploaded this presentation as well as a lot of other presentations and lab manuals. Note it down. It's on my GitHub account, github.com/Subodh Sohoni. That's SUBODH SOHONI/training. If you go to that, you will see a number of things, including today's presentation are there. I regularly publish articles and tutorials with other MVPs. I do that. Gauri, my wife, also is an MVP. She also publishes on that. And those are published on a website, .netcurry.com. And you can note down this link also if you want. This session was just a sort of a sneak peek into the workshop which we conduct for the Azure DevOps. And we do conduct that for 3 days, 3 complete days. And maybe we can shorten it to 2 days sometimes. We do that for some organizations to, if they have prerequisite knowledge. And we are planning to do this. The Optimistic will be doing this workshop. We are already in touch with Optimistic, so they will send you the flyers related to this workshop, which will be held sometime in March. And let's say I see many of you during that workshop. If you want to contact me directly, this is my email address, subodh@ssgsonline.com. Okay, so that brings me to the end of this session. But before that, I am going to check if there are any questions and queries that you have asked. Okay. So let me open the chat window. I cannot hear anything somebody had mentioned. I'm sorry that I cannot. Can you please let me know how I can hear? Okay. No, I can't see any questions here. If you have any questions, I still have about 5 minutes. So do ask questions. Otherwise, of course, you are welcome to join me on that workshop, which Optimistic is launching. And I'll be happy to answer all your queries at that time also, of course.
Yeah, I am Kannan speaking.
Yes, Kannan.
Yeah, what is the release you are doing that screen?
Yeah.
Can you open that? It's possible.
You want me to open that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, give me a minute.
There is one small.
Okay, so this is the release pipeline definition which I had created.
Yes. Now there is a development environment. You are creating the job and one task, correct? You click that.
Here, yes.
Yes. So here Azure subscription you are getting, correct? How you are
Correct.
getting that
Yeah,
information?
so I have used my same email account for creating the Azure subscription, which is here.
Okay.
This is the Azure subscription. And you can see here, this is the Azure DevOps subscription. Both of these I have created using the same email address, which is
Okay.
sumodsohoni@hotmail.com. And because of which, all my Azure subscriptions under that account will be listed over here. So I have actually 3 Azure subscriptions. All 3 of them are being listed here. Now, if you do not use the
This
same, okay,
trial one, or you already paid anything?
I those are all paid accounts, but
Oh,
even the trial one will appear over here. If you have a trial account
okay.
and using the same email address, if you have created the trial account as well as the Azure DevOps subscription, that trial account also will get populated over here.
Okay, that trial one only 30 days.
Of course,
Well,
that trial is a 30 days trial, $200 worth resources you can use.
okay. Fine.
And
Yeah.
if you want, of course, you can create another trial account, but for that, you'll have to have another credit card. The same credit card does not work for another trial account.
Okay, okay. Fine. Thank you so much.
Okay. Uh, any other queries? Right. So it seems that there are no more queries at this moment, and I've given you my email address. You can send me queries on that. You can go through the resources which I have published. So those are also open to you. Go ahead, download those freely, and I'm never going to close that. So even if you don't download those today, maybe after some time, if you want, you can go and download from those. All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording.